Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a quick little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Hinderer XM-18 3-inch DLT trading exclusive non-flipper Bowie. The reason that you very rarely see the 3-inch XM-18 on my channel is because I don't really like it unless it doesn't have a flipper tab, which in my opinion makes this much easier to manipulate. Now, I have reviewed the 3-inch, I have carried and used the 3-inch, right? This is the same knife. There's no difference. I have plenty of experience with the 3-inch, and I've already come to this conclusion, but I wanted to share this with you in the form of this brand new XM-18 3-inch non-flipper Bowie, because this is one of the best variations of this knife that you can find right now. If you have ever experienced the XM-18 3.5-inch, or even the new 3.25-inch, and you're thinking, it's just a little too big for me, the answer absolutely is the 3-inch non-flipper. And specifically the non-flipper because it solves all of the ergonomic issues that come with the flipper version of this knife. Now, if you still like the flipper version of this knife, that's fine. But I think the non-flipper version of this knife, it just makes it perfect. So I'm going to go over everything that I like about this knife very quickly because I've already reviewed the 3-inch XM-18. Thanks so much to DLT for loaning this knife to me for review. I don't get to keep it. It will go back to DLT when I'm done. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and make sure your notifications are turned on for the Metal Complex YouTube channel. Very quickly, we'll go through specs here. Overall length of the 3-inch is coming in at 7 inches. Your blade length is coming in at about 3 1/8, and your cutting edge is coming in at about 2.75. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against my full-size and compact Excalibur, the compact is the closest in size. It's still about a 1/2 inch longer. Let's go ahead and put it up. I also want to point this out. My own design is based on the XM-18 profile. Look at the ergonomic lines here. Can you understand why with the smaller XM, like why I prefer it in a non-flipper? The ergonomic zones are almost identical. And that is for good reason. In fact, you would find this out with the Shaman and the Mannix and a number of other knives out there that have similar ergonomic profiles, and it's because it works. Putting a flipper tab in the middle of this might be to some people's preferences, but it closes off the ergonomic space of the forward choil, which a lot of people would say just delete the forward choil. That's a preference, right? But for people like me who want the forward choil, it opens up the ergonomic space of that and does not force your finger forward into the cutting edge, which is why I like this. That's why I designed the Excalibur this way, because I agree with Rick Hinderer. I think this space is great, and it's made better by the lack of a flipper tab. Let's put it up against the Spyderco Para 3, which once again has extremely similar ergonomic zones, and then also the Spyderco PM2. And you can see here the Para 3 is obviously the one that's the closest. And then finally, we'll put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How is the action on the 3-inch? Normally, I am my preference is to the larger variation of any knife, right? There's something that makes this knife actually a little bit easier to deploy than its bigger brothers. The 3 1/4-inch XM-18, right, which we're also going to do a size comparison of here. We're going to do it like this. And then the, well, there's an XM-24. We don't really need to do that here. This is the XM-18 3.5-inch. This is the 3 1/4-inch. And this is the 3-inch. In terms of the spacing for deploying these knives, obviously my preference is going to be with the biggest guy and the medium-sized guy, Mama Bear, right? She's going to be okay, right? And flipper tab is fine. It's not a very good shape. Again, another reason I prefer not to have a flipper is because the flipper tab on the XM-18 sucks. But this guy has a little secret, and the secret is that they have begun to dome a little bit more the thumb studs. Let's take a look at the thumb stud on the on this guy. There we are. Can we get these to where we're looking at them together? There we go. This has much more of a ledge at the top. Okay, this is domed, almost like a button. Gen 4 and back on the XM-18 3.5-inch. Right, the 3 inches on a different generation, and this is Gen 1 for the 3 1/4 inch. But if we're looking at the XM-18 3.5 inch, which same thing here, right? This is how they're doing these studs. It's like a ledge. On this, it's slightly more domed. And does that matter? Oh my God, yes. It's a million times easier or more comfortable to deploy. It's so comfortable to deploy. And it should be, because this is the only means of deployment on this knife. You either use the one in the front or you use the one in the back, which it's very easy to utilize. This is 1,000 times more comfortable just doming this a little bit more. And I don't know if it's just with the 3 inch. They should do this with all these. This makes this knife so much more comfortable. A couple of times with this guy, 2 times with this, deploying it with a thumb stud, I'm like, I don't want to deploy it anymore. It hurts. Not with the 3 inch. It's a million times more comfortable. It's great. Love it. Detent's great. Action's great. Superb. No issues with it. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. The 3 inch XM-18 is factually thinner than the standard thickness of an XM-18. In this case, here's the 3.25 inch. Here's the 3.5 inch. I think it's even skinnier than the skinny. It might be exactly the same as the skinny, right? But this is more compact, lightweight. It's leaner all the way around. What are we looking at for materials? A number of different materials you can get with these. This guy's in CPM 20 CV. Hinderer typically, I think he outsources his heat treatment to Peters Heat Treat, which is still in the USA. And Peters will hit CPM 20 CV, M390, all that stuff. They'll hit it from 59 to 61. 59, in my opinion, is not ideal. 60 is where ideal starts, up to 62, maybe even 63. I wish that Hinderer would bump it up a little bit, but they won't. So that's just how it is, right? This comes down to the opinions of where the optimal heat treatment is. This is why I prefer Hinderer's S45VN, because I think they hit S45VN better. And I think they're doing a little bit of a better job with Magnica, but it's not confirmed that they're doing it exactly optimal. But, you know, that's the information that I have on their CPM 20 CV. You can refer to Taylor down in the comment section, who will undoubtedly have data down there for you guys to look at. You can also go to his website by going to my description and going to the very bottom of the description where Taylor's website is linked, and you can take a look at all sorts of different steel data. But anyways, we have CPM 20 CV, we have G10 on the front, and a titanium liner on this side, right? A lot of people are like, oh, it's just G10, but it's titanium under there. So titanium, then G10 on top, right? The weight comes in at 3.3 ounces, which is very close to ultra lightweight. On this channel, we say ultra lightweight is 3 ounces or less. And it's also very, very nicely balanced. The ratios are very good, and your balance is about right here behind the pivot, which is just spectacular, honestly. Let's do a hardware check. Get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The problem is that these are all Torx, so that doesn't apply. These are hex head, believe it or not. I know that the Eclipse uses Torx. These are hex. I hate that. I also think it's weird that they still use Phillips for the flipper tab, or the filler tab. And furthermore, they use they use a flathead for the pivot. In some ways, you know, it's the same argument I always make. The pivot, which is what you'll most likely need to adjust over time, it can be adjusted with a penny, which is very common. I think a penny is probably more readily accessible even than a flathead screwdriver. So that makes like field adjustability with these things pretty good until you have to disassemble it, in which case you need 3 different heads, which is just silly. It's so weird. You don't really need to take the pocket clip off. So, okay, you don't need the Phillips head, but it makes it easier to take the pocket clip off and lay it flat. You also need the hex heads. An XM-18 disassembly and reassembly is easy. It's just irritating to have to use 3 different tools. I don't see Hinderer changing this anytime soon, unless around the corner is a Gen 7 XM-18 3.5 inch. We are currently on the Gen 6. If Hinderer plans to make a Gen 7, the absolute best thing he could do for Gen 7 of the XM-18 is to make the hardware Torx across the board, T8 across the board for everything, and then take that same idea and apply it to all of his stuff. All of it. He could do that while maintaining the modularity of everything, because that's very important, modularity with Hinderer knives. You could keep the hardware exactly the same size. so that the modular parts could still be purchased and applied. All of that stuff sitting at retailers that people buy and add to their knives would still be applicable for the Gen 7s, but you could release the Gen 7s with the better hardware, right? That would be my opinion on how to do that. Perhaps that's not the most ideal thing for the Rick Hinderer business. I don't know. As a reviewer, those are my criticisms. Anyways, that's what you're going to need. It's very easy to take apart and put back together. We didn't finish up carry profile. Length and height in the pocket is going to look like this, right? Very, very easy to carry. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. Then we're going to get through some very lean meat and potatoes because it's not, there's not a lot left. Believe it or not, it's 139 thousandths, thicker than you might expect, right? Lots of different blade shapes. We don't need to go into too much of that. Ergonomically, superior comfort. Absolutely superior. Lock-in is fantastic. It still manages to feel like a heavy-duty knife. It is a frame lock. And remember, frame locks can and will disengage with enough spine impact. I am not the type of person to pretend that this is not the case, right? I do not expect frame locks to withstand that type of force, but they are susceptible to it. So you need to remember that that is the case. While you're holding a frame lock, you'll be holding that lock in place, right? Even up here choked up. If you slip and let go of that lock bar and you bash the spine of the knife into something on accident hard enough, because of the nature of a frame lock, there is a chance that it will disengage on you, right? So I would say make sure that you're using this in an environment where you have complete and total control over it so that you can minimize, not completely eliminate, but minimize the likeliness that you're going to slip and have something impact the back of the blade, which can happen because we live in a chaotic universe and you cannot control everything. Despite what that one guy down in the comments is saying, well, just learn to use your knife better and you gotta have experience. Everybody, we can all high-five that guy in the face at the same time. We'll keep high-fiving him over and over again, just like Thor did to Hulk. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Don't listen to that guy. We live in a chaotic universe. He can't control everything. So all you can do is mitigate this and understand the general weaknesses of a frame lock, right? This is a drawback to the frame lock. So we have to acknowledge it. That doesn't mean that this knife is bad or unusable. It just means that you have to be aware of it while you're using it. Rick Hinderer does a pretty good lock face geometry, so it's among the better frame locks that are out there. Not the best, in my opinion. Chris Reeve makes the best frame lock out there, but it's good. They've got their geometry down. Everything's solid. It should hold up, right, in normal circumstances. But anyways, really good ergonomics. Really enjoy the ergonomics here. Don't have to worry about the flipper tab. It's nice. The lock-in is great. Very good. This is the Bowie blade. Obviously, their best slicer is going to be the slicer blade, but the Bowie blade is good. It's, kind of medium thickness behind the edge, but your sharpness out of the box. Rick Hinderer knives are not known for being like absolute laser beams, but if you've ever heard that Rick Hinderer knives can't cut, well, I don't know why people are saying that. Either they're doing this. I've seen lots of YouTube knife reviewers. Hinderer knives, their geometry so bad. Look at this. They can't cut. Well, this is stupid, right? If you cut the way that it's supposed to, obviously it's sharp and it will cut. A lot of people complain about them not being like absolute laser beams. Obviously, the geometry at the edge is not going to be open L thin, and sometimes Hinderer's factory edge is a little bit subpar, admittedly, right? But they are usually more robust knives, so you don't want to expect, these knives to be like I said, laser beams. But will they slice? Yeah, they will. This claim is over-exaggerated. I probably have more Hinderer videos on YouTube than literally anyone else on YouTube, and I have demonstrated this with more variety and various thicknesses of edge geometry than anybody else on YouTube. And if you go back and watch, which I have a Hinderer Knives playlist, you can conveniently go and do this. You can actually see me demonstrate this versus reading a paragraph from a disgruntled buyer, right? Or somebody who just has kind of unreasonable expectations. I'm not saying nobody's correct about that. I'm saying that a lot of times you're hearing this from either brand haters or just like people with unreasonable expectations. And occasionally you'll get somebody who actually does have a problem. But if you want evidence of consistency with Hinderer knives, you can literally just watch my content where I demonstrate it. But anyways, I'm not saying everybody has to accept Hinderer's blade geometry. I'm just saying I have visual proof that these things absolutely can slice out of the box and slice pretty well, right? So if you want to see that versus reading a paragraph, you can do that. But anyways, is there anything else really to talk about here? I mean, it's a Hinderer knife, right? We have the working finish on this. This is the working finish. The stonewash finish is going to look like this. So if you wanted to see there. And then Hinderer's black wash or battle black finish is, where did it go? There we go. Their battle black finish, which is a DLC, is going to look like this. Occasionally they do have the shiny DLC. It's pretty rare, but these are typically the finishes that you're going to see on Hinderer knives in the most common way. The standoffs, right? We have 3-inch specific standoffs, so make sure if you're going to buy different standoffs, you buy the right ones. Same with the Chicago ends and the screws. You need to buy them specifically for this model. Tip up or tip down carry. I did not mount it this way. This is how it comes from the factory. I would always carry, I would not carry tip down. I would carry tip up, but that's a preference, right? Steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. And then, of course, we have the Hinderer LBS, which is another over travel and lock bar stabilizer. Two different things there. External stops, no blade play, up, down, left, and right. No lock stick, no pivot lash. Your connection for the closed position stop is actually back here behind the area where the flipper tab would be, so nothing coming in contact with the plunge grind, which I'll let you take a look at. It does thicken up pretty aggressively, but not anything that's going to stop you from using this knife over time. The base price of this knife is $425, which in my opinion isn't bad for the full-size one. We're going to have people complaining about that like we always do, and it's because these people don't realize that Hinderer knives and Kershaw knives are not the same thing. A Hinderer knife is ridiculously, it's comically more expensive to create than a Kershaw knife. Now, if you don't care about the processes or the cost behind Hinderer knives, and you just want the thing that is, you know, dollar for dollar, like it's just less expensive, then just go buy the Kershaw, right? Because they make a great product. A Hinderer knife is a small batch product. Hinderer knives is nowhere near the size of Spyderco. They also have infinitely more processes involved with each of their knives. They also have hand tuning, hand assembling, right? I believe these are still sharpened individually, right, by hand. They're also using titanium and machining titanium in the United States. Regardless of your feelings on this matter, or whether or not you want to apply some sort of arbitrary reasoning to this, the Hinderer is factually and in reality a more expensive product to create. So we can't just apply, Kershaw pricing to these because we feel like it makes more sense. No, your feelings don't dictate the price tag. But, right, now that I've made a bunch of people mad, is $425 a reasonable price tag for this? Well, I think $425 is a lot more reasonable for one of their larger XM-18s, right? I think the pricing should go like this. $425, $395, $350, right? Or maybe this goes $385, then this goes $350. Could they do that? I think absolutely, right? Will they do that? No, they won't. I think the XM-18 3-inch has always been a little overpriced. They've just sort of they're like, yeah, it just costs the same as the 3.5-inch, right? And then the freaking 4-inch, like the XM24 is that's $600 because reasons. That's crazy. That should be $500. $425 for the XM-18 3.5-inch, $385 to $400 for the 3.25-inch, and $350 for the 3-inch, right? So you're going to overpay for this one. But if you're looking for the ultimate 3-inch, get the version that's a non-flipper because it's better. That's exactly how I feel. Is it the absolute best product in this category, right? We are in a higher tier. We are in essentially, ultra high-end production / mid-tech territory. No, there's a lot of good competition for this knife, so I suggest you look around. But as far as Hinderer knives go, in the 3-inch category, the non-flipper is absolutely the best and will be recommended for that reason. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This did not end up as a short video, did it? If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.